Speaking about history, there are many different sources claiming different things along the history. Different sources claim that this or that nation have done the first surgical operation ever in the ancient world. Thus, it's so complicated to confirm the exact truth. But let's take a dive into history and see how did surgery start and how the ancient nations used to perform them. This is Mustafa and you're watching Red Scraps, so make yourself a cup of coffee, buckle up, and let's dive. Some sources claim that first ever surgery was performed dating back to 6500 BC. Some claim that it all began in Kemet, which is located nowadays in Egypt. The first surgical operation with archaeological evidence related to ancient Greece. This operation consisted of drilling into the skull till the dura mater, which is the tough outer layer of the skull, and that was in order to relieve the pressure inside the skull. And there is no need to mention that such an operation used to be performed without any sort of anesthetic since it wasn't discovered yet. This was even before the discovery of alcohol, which was in between 5400 to 5000 years BC. That later began to be used as anesthetic or painkiller, for example the usage of wine in the Middle Ages. And as we advanced in history, we learned that it wasn't an efficient way. In other cultures, such as the Aztec civilization, which is located nowadays in South America, according to archaeological records, the Aztecs used to split the bone in order to fix them. And if that didn't work, then they used to cut open one end of the bone and stick a spruce into the marrow cavity in hopes of reconstructing it. Wet capping is one of the oldest practices ever known to mankind and is still being used currently in some countries the same way it used to be. This practice was actively used in Mesopotamia, which is present-day Iraq, as well as China, Maya, Egypt, and even during the era of Hippocrates. Speaking about Mesopotamia, in the Constitution of Hammurabi, which by the way is considered the first constitution ever in the history of the mankind, it contained regulations and legalizations of the practice of surgeons, medical compensations, and penalties for malpractice. So if the surgeon in Mesopotamia made a big incision using a surgical tool or extracted an abscess on an eyelid and he succeeded, then the surgeon gets 10 shekel. By the way, the currency in Mesopotamia around the year 3000 BC was called shekel, which is around 5000 years before Israel. If the patient was a slave, then his owner must give the surgeon 2 shekels. In case the patient dies during the operation, then the surgeon gets his hand cut off. It might make you rethink about becoming a doctor that time. In ancient Egypt, around 2700 BC, Amenhotep, the god of medicine, wrote the first constitution of medicine and pharmacological guidance. And probably he performed the very first plastic surgery in history on alligator bites. We know that thanks to Ebers papyrus stored in University of Leipzig. Celsus and Claudius Galenus were the first ever to perform hernias and surgeries on the eye. That was in Alexandria. Let us not forget that all of these operations were held without any anesthesia. Impressive, isn't it? Maybe among some civilizations they had an access to some sorts of anesthesia, but what we know for sure is that major surgeries which are nowadays performed under general anesthesia, such as nephrectomy, which is an operation to remove a kidney, used to be held with no anesthesia. Patients used to faint many times during the surgery, and 2 assistants of the surgeon used to hold the patient still while the surgeon would be performing. It's difficult to compare the role of the modern assistant with the ancient assistant. At that time, it was considered to be a huge cutting-edge performance that could save lives. Nevertheless, mortality rate was way higher than success. Taking into consideration nowadays common sense practices such as cleaning the doctor's hand before even touching a patient weren't a matter of concern back then. Nonetheless, back then the operation could take place in an open field, not in highly sterilized rooms such as required now. By the way, I've made a whole video about clean doctors. I advise you to watch it. The link will be down below in the description. So all of these aspects are considered to be the cause of the high mortality rate on the table, without forgetting the fact of the absence of basic knowledge of human anatomy that time. The knowledge of surgery was adopted in Europe later than the rest of the world, by the year 1514 to 1564. Surgery is probably as old as the human civilization. In some parts of the world it appeared early, and in some other places it sadly appeared too late. For a long period of time in history, surgery wasn't considered as part of medicine, but it was only a craft. For example, surgeons didn't have the right to prescribe medications, but surgery is developing and moving forward as everything else around the world. It started off as cruel actions towards the patients, causing more harm than good. And nowadays we're talking about 100% remotely controlled robotic surgery in the near future. That was it for today. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe, and if you didn't like it, then share it with your friends. Who knows? They might like it.